The Mix Minus podcast is brought to you by Big League Pillows. Customizable sports jersey pillows. You can add your name on the back, on the front, and your number to a large assortment of sports jersey styles and colors. You can go to bigleaguepillows.com and use promo code MIXMINUS to get free shipping on your order. Folks, how you doing? It's June 10th, nearly 4 p.m. on our nice weather times. As we head into summer, the NBA season is over. I'm just trying to get in a quick podcast here with not a ton of time to spare. I've been on a tight schedule today, going from one thing to another while being a father and a husband. Not sure what I've been good at doing all the things, but here I am to try to get in some topics and subjects and discussions on some of the things that have gone on over the last week or so. And let's start first with the NBA Finals. The Golden State Warriors swept the Cleveland Cavaliers 4-0 in the fourth consecutive matchup between the two teams. A lot has changed in this matchup over the 4 years. Both teams have changed the constituent parts markedly. The main players have always been involved when we're talking with the Cavs of LeBron James, Kevin Love, some of the side parts such as J.R. Smith. And the Golden State Warriors have obviously had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green the whole time. And obviously, because of the loss they endured in the second year of this run in 2015, they went ahead, or 2016, I'm sorry, I get lost in the years here. Because of the loss in 2016 when they were up 3-1 and had the final 3 games, 2 of 3 were going to be in Oakland at Oracle Arena. And they pretty much hemorrhaged out that series. They did lose some key players, but I'm sick of hearing about Golden State missing players when they have all-world players on their team already. But that team really needed those pieces that left. Draymond Green was obviously, for anybody who follows this, he was taken out for a game because of what he did to LeBron James and having too many technical fouls. He was suspended for the Game 5. Which gave some impetus to the Cavaliers to find their footing and find their way. And LeBron James and then teammate Kyrie Irving put together an unbelievable tandem run to close out the final 3 games, end the series in an epic Game 7 in Oracle Arena. And because of that, the series of the 4 games now, but it took on halfway through quite a major change when Kevin Durant decided to go to the Golden State Warriors. They obviously lost a good deal of the depth they had accrued, but that's okay when you have all-world players and you add yet another one, maybe the second best player in the league at the time, behind LeBron James. But when you have maybe 2 out of the best 4, 3 out of the best 6, and 4 out of the best 12, that's a pretty good team. It's going to be very hard to beat. And then when you add the fact that Golden State just has an amazing second unit of players, from Andre Iguodala to Sean Livingston, and up and down the row there, what they have is just an amazing, basically 7 players that can compete with anybody and has a hard time having others compete with them. But we just finished the 4-year match up of these two teams, and I don't think we're going to see this matchup again. I believe that LeBron James will be leaving Cleveland, and I don't know if anybody in Cleveland could really blame him for the fact that he did deliver that finals victory in 2016 and got the team to 4 finals, and that is a lot of extra money coming into the gate, coming into the Cavaliers organization, all of those extra home games. And it's actually funny because I was looking over the amount of games they played, and in a year, I believe it was like last year, where they almost swept through the Eastern Conference, they probably played more home games this year at the Q at Quicken Loans Arena. They probably played more home games than they did in past years because of the struggles of the team, because of how the team was not as good as past versions and what it went through over the last year in particular, starting with the loss of Kyrie Irving and that trade with Boston, where Cleveland did get back players who many thought were commensurate to a degree when you think of Isaiah Thomas coming off of nearly being a 30-point scorer. He did have a terrible hip injury, which he had to come back from, and he never quite came back to the player he was last year. And you wonder if he were healthy, would he be the player he was last year playing with a player like LeBron James? We saw Kyrie Irving was able to play with a LeBron James and thrive, and even there he didn't quite love it from what it seemed like. It's almost as though Kyrie Irving was, whereas when LeBron went to Miami, he had Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, and they were his contemporaries, so they were his boys. Kyrie Irving felt like almost his little brother, and so they didn't quite have the tight-knit aspect that maybe LeBron did with his contemporaries. And LeBron came into Kyrie's Cleveland, and Kyrie's role had to change immensely. Now, that's okay when you're going to year after year of finals, when you were coming off of being basically a mid-20s to late 20s win team, but it changed, and Kyrie re-upped there in Cleveland to be the leader of the team and to build something over the ensuing years. If you remember, he actually did try to recruit Gordon Hayward to Cleveland, and I believe Cleveland did give the offer, but was it that I forget if he signed with Utah or he really was going to look at Cleveland, or maybe it was that year that actually LeBron James decided to come. But Kyrie thought he was going to be the leader of that team, and LeBron comes in and you kind of do what you're supposed to do. He had just signed a 5-year deal, and look, he went to the finals all those years, but he didn't have his perfect situation, I think. And once you get that chip, once you get that championship under your belt, you have that ring, you're not even 25 years old. I think he was 25 this year. You look towards greener pastures in the form of the Boston Celtics. He got a very good deal in terms of being traded for that. I heard Bill Simmons, the great podcaster and writer, fan-based writer who runs The Ringer, he called it pre-agency, and I thought that was a very good term. He was able to exact and exert his control in the situation, what leverage he did have, and get himself to the Celtics. And the Celtics sent back a handful of players who were useful in Boston and were less so when they came to Cleveland. And they also did send back that Brooklyn pick, which is going to turn out to be the number 8 pick this year. So there is still something to see from that. There could be a very good player. But I think in terms of what LeBron has now, he's going to be leaving. He's going to be 34 next year. 34 starts getting to a point where you cannot bank on what you saw from past results. Age has to catch up with this guy at some point, and even if it catches up with him slowly and he's somewhat diminished, when he's on a new team, he's going to look a little different. He might look a little older, and so he really needs to go to the right place. But I think he wants to win championships still. He's already gone to 8 straight finals, and he's gone to 9 overall, and I think he wants to continue that streak, but he'd really like to win. I really believe he's going to go to Houston because his best friend Chris Paul is there, and you have James Harden, and you have a coterie of players who can play around those kind of ball-dominant players. And I think that it's a perfect situation in terms of the shooters you can stack up around them. Even if you lose a guy like Clint Capella, you can bring in other pieces at a reduced rate, Tyson Chandler types potentially, who can. You really need players who can dive to the rim off of the ball dominant player, or be out at the 3-point line and take that shot when the opening comes, when the defense sucks in on those players. And can the three of them play together? I think so, yes. I mean, I was wrong last year when I thought that Chris Paul could not play with James Harden. They were both ball dominant. How was that going to work? But there comes a point in a career when players play for something bigger. They play for that championship. They're not playing for themselves anymore. They've been in it so long. They've seen what big numbers can mean to them. They've gotten it out of their system. They know they can do it year after year. Now it's time to win. Very much like we saw with the Boston Celtics when Kevin Garnett went that way, and all of a sudden Paul Pierce re-engaged, and then Ray Allen came, and it was a perfect mix of early 30-year-old players who were looking to really carry on and win something, where none of them had really won at the highest levels before. They were all great singular talents, but here they were as a team, doing things for the team, doing things for something bigger than themselves. Go back to those big league pillows, doing something for the front of the jersey as opposed to the back of the jersey, even though we love both in big league pillows. But That was really the situation they had come to. And I really believe in a Houston situation. Now, it's going to be interesting because to get LeBron, they're going to have to shed some of these players who were very useful. I'm thinking of Eric Gordon, namely among them. And LeBron's going to have to do basically a sign and trade from Cleveland. Will Cleveland be willing to do that? I do have to think they will be if LeBron says I'm leaving anyway. If LeBron did bring that championship to Cleveland in 2016, if he did bring 4 runs to the finals and all of the attending money that comes with that, I do have to think that if he says, look, I'm done here, I'm not trying to be spiteful, I'm not trying to say this is a terribly run organization, but let's make this happen. You guys can get something back here. Maybe they can get Eric Gordon back, something like that. Maybe some other pieces, maybe a pick if there is one to be had. And then LeBron can go to Houston and play with those 2 other guys, those 2 other ball-dominant players who would be in a position to be unselfish and would be in a true position to take on Golden State. You now can match fire with fire, and you can be in a series. In a series, which I want to kind of pivot to, this whole idea that the Warriors are unfair, I get it. I totally understand it. Look, they swept the Cavs. They've won 3 out of 4 finals now. They've been to 4 straight. The only year they didn't win, they were up 3-1 and lost the final 3 games. And that was a year they won 73 games. And people say, oh, it was a 73-win team. And then they added Kevin Durant. Fine. But they honestly needed Kevin Durant, I think, at that point to beat LeBron James. And this is just what happens. It becomes an arms race. It becomes a situation where you need to add the right player to take on and neutralize that other great player. And they were in a position to do it. I mean, for all those who say he should have gone somewhere else, he should have re-signed with Oklahoma City. This is what free agency is about. It's about the ability to go where you want to go. And if Golden State, with that 73-win roster and those high-level players that they were able to draft who were not number 1 picks. These were guys who were, I think Steph was a 7th pick, I think Clay was in the teens, and Draymond Green was a 2nd-round pick. When you're looking at this team, to say that that core is unfair is unfair. That was not unfair. Anybody could have had any of these players and built them in their system. The fact that these guys were able to develop them into the players they were, to get them through, in Steph Curry's case, injury concerns with the ankles, and to up him at money that was now very moderate once he's in the $200 million range for a contract, but to give him money when it didn't look like he was going to be able to shake these ankle injuries, you have to say that they built something and they found a way to develop it. And to say it's unfair to add Kevin Durant to that, well, I don't buy it. They had the money available to do it. He felt a kinship with those players, that Hampton's 5, as they say, all those players who went out to meet with him, a 73-win team who had gone to 2 straight finals and once, as I said, 73 wins, to go out there and meet with him and say, we want you here. For Steph Curry to say, I don't mind to cede some of this spotlight to you, to cede all of it, when you see that Kevin Durant has now won 2 straight NBA Finals MVPs, he's okay with that. And he got his money, Steph did, and he has his acclaim. He's got his seat in history as someone who has changed the game overall in a way that is, I don't see how you come back from it. Although, very much like I think with Donald Trump and the Republican Party, when people say, oh my gosh, he's changed this forever. This Republican Party is Trump now. The man is 71. And who is the next Trump? That's what I want to know. Who's the next one coming who has this perfect mix? If I say perfect, I mean it in the kind of the literal sense. I don't mean it's perfect, but he has this perfect mix of personality, of outsider, of rogue, of his own money, of his own planes, of his own ability, he's not beholden to anyone. He could speak to a group of people in a way that fits the narrative that they're looking and what he's giving. And I think it's just a one-time situation where I don't see people coming in. I don't see the next Trump right behind him. I mean, look at the historic amount of Republican suitors who were in play to be the president. What were there, 15? Where they were having like JV debates with legitimate contenders going in a secondary debate because they weren't as popular. There was plenty of choices, and this guy found a way. He found a way to kind of to part the seas, and really the moment found him, much the way the moment found President Obama in a different sense. But kind of the moment finds you, and you have the right requisite pieces and You have the right skill set to utilize that moment and to find it. Where's the next Steph Curry coming? Is it Trae Young? I don't think so. I mean, sometimes these guys come along and we honestly always want to look for the template. Where's the next guy? Where's the next guy? The next guy's not there. We always have this argument with Jordan. Oh, LeBron James is the next Jordan. It's like, no, they're different players. And I thought Charles Oakley said that well on the recent Bill Simmons podcast. He was saying, look, they're totally different guys. They're great in their own, in their own era, in their own sense, but they're totally different guys. Why do we need the next one? Just take the one we have. But I think this era that he's created, this pace and space, shooting from outer space and making it and using that as a weapon, almost the way Shaq used spacing near the rim as a weapon, it'll only change things as long as you find great shooters. And they happen to have many of them on that team. But I don't think it's unfair for him to go there, for Kevin Durant to go to that team. It was the place. He was a free agent at the time. He had the choice. And why not go there? If they're saying we want you and they're putting out the red carpet and they're putting out the pitch and they're saying this is our thing, Steph is saying you take it, big guy, and run. You do what you got to do. And they needed it. They honestly needed it. But I don't think it's unfair. They were down 3-2 in the series before to a team who was built to directly play them, to take them on, and they did. So just because they swept the Cavaliers and they dispatched kind of a depleted San Antonio team before that, and a team who everyone was getting really high on in New Orleans, but were in no way a real combatant against Golden State. It's not unfair. They're just that good. But Houston, within 1 year, was able to put a team together that matched them. And if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, it might have been Houston sweeping the Cavaliers. And then would we say then that Houston was unfair? No, this is how the league works. And now when LeBron, if he goes there, which is, by the way, Houston's a city that he can be good in. I mean, anywhere where spaceships take off from, this is a guy who can be fine there. That is a city that matches LeBron, and I think going there allows him to age gracefully. It allows Chris Paul to age gracefully. I don't know if Chris Paul can get that same money contract he was going to look at getting, maybe lesser years, maybe giving up a little bit of the money for LeBron James to get in there. But I think they can all age gracefully together, and I think they can stagger the game. The way Houston did this year, where they staggered the game, where they always had Chris Paul or James Harden in, and did have some overlap between the players being in, but didn't always need it. I think that's where they could be. You add LeBron to that, now you can stagger it 3 ways. You can almost have 3 lines like hockey, and you can overlap the different players at certain times, maybe crunch time. I don't know. I think that's a really good situation for him. I don't buy Philadelphia as much because I don't think they have the pieces around to be the pace and space. I mean, I know that Ben Simmons is amazing and Embiid is amazing, but in terms of what LeBron needs, the main guys need to be able to shoot, and Chris Paul can shoot. He was a better shooter this year than I thought he could ultimately be on a regular basis, and James Harden's a great shooter. You need your main guys to be great shooters, and Ben Simmons is not even a shooter. Embiid's a much better shooter than Ben Simmons, but I don't know what that tells you. I don't know if it's time for him yet. I've been intrigued with the idea of just going to the Knicks, although that's going to another crazy owner. I also was kind of batting around the idea today, why doesn't he go to Charlotte? Everyone keeps saying, who's the GOAT? Who's the GOAT? Well, how about LeBron goes and saves the lackluster front office career of Michael Jordan? Maybe he can go win Jordan a ring. So there's a lot at play here, and it's going to be really kind of fun to see how it all plays out. But I don't think the Warriors are unfair. Honestly, I don't. And you can give flack to Kevin Durant, do whatever you want, but history will look back, and even those who say unfair, he still has his name etched in the books for being a champion, for being a finals MVP. And history will always look a little better on this, a little kinder on this. And when we look back and see what happened to Oklahoma City after he left, and even them bringing in so-called stars, putative stars in Carmelo Anthony and Paul George and Victor Oladipo in the year before that, and Sabonis. Not that those are stars, but Oladipo did turn out to be a star. Maybe Kevin Durant was raising up a guy like Russell Westbrook to a level that many can't understand, but we'll see in hindsight. So I don't know that it was the worst idea. And look, Steph got hurt this year. These guys can get hurt. And the one thing about being this top heavy is you don't have depth. So when someone goes down, and look how close that game one was. Who knows if Cleveland ends up winning that game, how this series shifts in some way when the impetus gets put on Golden State to respond, and all of a sudden maybe their shots get a little long, their legs get a little tired. Who knows? It's very hard to see, very hard to know how these things merge or how these things go ahead. I mean, you think of that Orlando time when they were in the finals against Houston, and you look at that as a sweep, and that year Shaq was there and Penny and Nick Anderson playing that kind of older Houston team. You look at that, and Orlando, who had home court advantage, was winning, and they were in a position where Nick Anderson could have taken a game one, and he just missed all those free throws in a really heartbreaking way. And who knows if that broke their spirit in game one, the way the game one loss kind of broke Cleveland's spirit. And all of a sudden, a sweep is a sweep, and history just looks at it as a sweep. But in some ways, it's really the one game going towards Orlando in that 95 series, and the one game going to Cleveland this year. Who knows how things turn out? Who knows if this is now a 6-game series that's a little more competitive? It's very hard to tell. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk about here was the Apple Worldwide Developer Conference that happened almost last week from tomorrow, right? Or was it Tuesday? I forget. I think it was Tuesday or Monday, whichever one. But Apple has this conference every single year where they pretty much, it's called Worldwide Developer Conference. So they have developers in the crowd, people who develop applications atop Apple's iOS and Mac systems, and they sort of do a presentation both to them and then to all those streaming. They give a presentation, sort of an outlook on where they're taking the software and hardware in the coming future, about the next 6 months, maybe where the new devices coming out, the types of software that developers can look forward to, that then developers can go into this beta period before it's actually released, which is usually in September, the new software. And developers can go into this beta and kind of use the new stuff that's being put out there by Apple and try to develop either new applications on top of that, reimagining things on top of these things that Apple has put out there as something that's new, or taking the apps they already have and finding ways to sort of port them to the new software, or take their app and reimagine their apps and do new things on top of the Apple OS to do new things on it, because Apple has created new channels to build upon. So it's always a fun thing to see, even just being a consumer of Apple products. It's fun to know where you're going, because you don't have to buy a new Apple device to necessarily revel in the new things available. We all get these iOS updates on our phones, and the big number ones when you go from 10 to 11 or 11 to 12, and I believe this will be iOS 12, things change massively. Remember the one year they went from having that old style, was it called skeuomorphic design, where it mimicked things in the real world, wood paneled bookcases, messages like mail messages looking like text messages, and then they moved to this sort of design that's digital native. And so it's fun to see where it's going. It's a nice June event, and we'll go through some of these things that they announced. So one of the things they announced, playing on the aforementioned idea of having an older phone and still being able to enjoy the new iOS, Apple announced that iOS 12 will work on any device that supports iOS 11, and it will even give a speed boost to some older devices. So this is Apple not only creating new things, but finding ways to go back on what they created and improve the performance so that people can experience the software and hardware in ways that were maybe getting a little sluggish before, but now they're much faster. So Apple says the iPhone 6 Plus, for instance, launches apps up to 40% faster and takes photos up to 70% faster while running iOS 12. It's a big thing. Anybody who keeps a phone for a long period of time, you start wondering why things are feeling so sluggish. Apple teamed up with Pixar. I'm reading this off of Business Insider. I always like to see who has the best synthesis of what happened. Usually The Verge does. Theirs seemed to be a little lackluster this time. Business Insider, though, has it nicely put together, almost in bullets, almost numbered bullets, ordered lists. Almost looks like a PowerPoint presentation. So Apple teamed up with Pixar to make a new compact file format called USDZ. That almost sounds like a Middle Eastern or Chinese like demarcation zone, but whatever. And it's optimized for sharing GIFs and videos that features 3D graphics and animations. This will be ideal for sharing your augmented reality experiences with the world. Not understanding that right now. I'm sure as it all comes to play, if this kind of augmented reality really does kick off the way tech is hoping it does, because tech needs its new platform and they really want the new OS to be augmented reality. The old OS's operating systems are what they are. It's Android, it's Apple or iOS. People really want this next platform of the future to be something else that other combatants can kind of build atop. Apple introduced a special new app for iOS called Measure. This is cool, especially for someone like me who's not very do-it-yourself inclined, but what it does is it lets you measure distance and length using only your iPhone. So you tap on your phone and drag a line with your finger to get a measurement. That's kind of cool. So that seems to be using augmented reality somehow. So you're using the camera, you're looking at the real world, and then you're using it as your measuring tool. That would be real cool if they could put a stud finder in this. Maybe there is an app that's a stud finder. That's always such a feeling of accomplishment when you bring out that stud finder, that purpose-built device, and you put it along the wall and it's like ding, 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 ding. And you go, this is how people put photos in. Do you ever realize that before you're somebody who knows how to nail photos up to the wall, that you're like just doing it without any tools, and you're like, why isn't this working? How do people get this in? This nail's not even going in. It's because walls are built. They all look the flat same to you, but behind those walls, you have to find the place where it's between planks of wood that are holding the wall up. So you have to go to where it's just basically the ability for you to hit that nail in. And when you find that stud, it takes 2 seconds. It's like 2 hits. It's right in. So that's a big thing. It would be nice. Maybe Apple does have this, but this is cool. A measuring app where I can open my phone. I don't have to go find the measuring thing, and I can just kind of measure that. So that's really cool. Sharing photos with friends is much easier in iOS 12. If you take photos with friends, iOS can detect who is in them and offer to send these photos to those friends. I feel like this is something Samsung does in their commercials almost, or Android, and it's like not that cool. And hopefully this works out well, because I couldn't imagine if they take a picture and they send it to the wrong person. What if somebody is with their someone they're having an affair with, and it looks like their wife, which is, don't people always say that you have affairs with people who look like your wife or your mother? One or the other, or you marry, I don't know. But what if they think it's that person and they send that to the person it thinks it is, and then your wife finds out something not nice, as does your mother. So it's saying your friends can get similar notifications to share their photos from the same event, so everyone can access the full set. Let's hope that that is very carefully orchestrated, how that works, and that it just doesn't default to mass text craziness. Apple is making Siri much more useful thanks to Siri Shortcuts, a new feature born from Apple's acquisition of the Excellent Workflow app. With Siri Shortcuts, you can create unique phrases that perform multiple activities in one or several apps. For example, you could create a shortcut for the phrase "I lost my keys," which would automatically trigger your Tile app to play an alarm so you can find your device. This almost feels like the IFTT, If This Then That, which is a cool app where you can set up kind of bespoke shortcuts where one app can talk to another and then send an alarm. It's almost like the beginning of Back to the Future when Doc Brown's apartment has that thing where it's like the clock goes off and then it puts the dog food in place for the dog. It starts the coffee, which then starts the toast, which then does this. If This Then That is almost the digital version of that. It's a cool app. And if Siri Shortcuts can actually work with this, that would be good, because I do not use SIRI. I don't want to say it because I got about 13 devices here which will listen to that. I don't use it. I obviously love the Amazon Alexa. That is the one digital assistant I really use quite a bit. The one on the Apple devices, I don't really use. The one on the Google devices, or Google devices, or in Google Apps, you can use it. I just don't really, I don't really use it. I can do it much faster with my fingers, searching things, looking things up. But this kind of thing could be good if you can actually have really, really well-defined shortcuts that can do certain things. That would be really useful. But this is where these developer conferences come in play. They come up with these ideas, and it's Apple throwing them out to the masses and saying, this is what we think this could do. And then developers will take it and probably do something completely different, and you'll never hear of what Apple wanted you to do, because Apple is not us. Apple is not the real world. They're very rich people who live very rich lives, who have the version of Siri shortcuts at the highest $1 million levels in their homes, where lights are turning on automatically and all this stuff. So they're not you or I. They're not the everyday person. And maybe something like Siri shortcuts isn't really for the everyday person, because it's not something that we would dream up or really need. A lot of times we open our phone, we look at text, we look at Facebook, we look at articles. There's like 4 or 5 things we do, and to have deeper actions that happen off of other actions is a lot of kind of computations to put in our mind to set up. Apple made CarPlay, its system that lets your iPhone interface with your car's stereo display much more attractive. In iOS 12, CarPlay will finally be supported by will finally support third-party navigation apps, so you can get directions from popular ones like Waze and Google Maps. That's not for me. I don't even have a smart system in my car. That's how I kept the price down. I just get the full-on dumb default system, and then I just let my phone be the CarPlay anyway by hooking into the car through the wire or through the Bluetooth. That is my CarPlay, and that keeps the prices down. Apple is also updating notifications in iOS 12. Apple will finally group notifications by app, topic, or thread, and you'll also be able to more fine-tune which apps can send notifications in the first place. That's good, because you ever get those weird times? Like I get this recently. All of a sudden, Weather Channel starts just sending me notifications, and I'm like, I don't even interact with Weather Channel. How did they sneak that in where now they're in my notification screen? I don't know. So there's that. So understanding what you're getting notifications from is important, and also grouping it, because if you're a popular person, your screen is loaded with 1 million notifications. I am not like that, so mine are manageable, but I know that if you're someone who's just texting with groups and people and getting news notifications and getting notifications from this app and this app, it's completely overwhelming and there's no way to manage it. So the fact that they can group them together, that is a big deal, and I'm sure that will be useful even for me. Apple added app limits for people who need help managing their time on their devices. This is interesting. This is the techaholic in all of us. So they're saying Apple could choose to spend they're saying that you could choose to spend only an hour on Instagram a day. So you could set all these different things where it's like, only let me spend 45 minutes on Facebook, only let me spend 2 hours on Instagram. And it keeps a countdown when you start coming up against those things, and then you can't break the countdown until the next day. Now, you probably can override it because you are the boss of the device at the end of the day, but it could be an interesting thing to use to really try to curtail our overuse of these devices. Parents can also set limits for their kids. That could be useful. Kids will definitely be able to override that. Apple is taking Animoji to the next level with a Bitmoji-esque feature called Memoji. So if we go back 50 years and say that sentence, good luck not being sent to the loony bin and having one of those crazy brain procedures. I don't know what any of that means, but it's saying it'll let you create a personalized Animoji. So I guess it uses your face to make an avatar that looks like the real you or someone like you entirely. I don't do these things. Maybe someday I will. Maybe younger people do. Apple Messages app will be much more like Snapchat in iOS 12. Why Snapchat's stock is just tanking, I don't know why you do this. I think if people use the Snapchat-like features, it's in Facebook Messenger or Instagram, which Facebook also owns. But Apple tries to get in on this stuff, and it never quite works because people don't see their relationship with Apple that way. They see Apple as the provider of their mobile experience, not as their kind of entertainment system for talking with people at these levels. I think people use a lot of these other apps to do that, and they see the Apple Text Map or Apple's messaging app as a very almost utility that they talk with people back and forth. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see much texting between people using Animojis or Memoji now, or I just see basically families sending pictures of their kids to loved ones and videos and all that kind of stuff. This is cool. Apple dialed FaceTime up to 11 by supporting up to 32 simultaneous participants. FaceTime is now integrated with messages, so you can go right from a group chat to a group FaceTime, and members can drop in and out at any time. This is awesome. Now, I have problems with one-to-one FaceTime sometimes, so let's see how Apple deals with 32 potential computations on this. I like this for doing podcasts. I think this is phenomenal for doing group podcasts. You obviously need to have the setup where you can take the recording in, like they're not going to do the recording on this, but as a way, I've almost gone fully when I have remote guests. They almost always have iPhones. And I will automatically, if I'm like, oh, they give me their cell to call in, I will just use very secretly, I'll just use the FaceTime audio feature so that I'm getting that high level audio in. It almost sounds like a microphone. This is cool if you can add in a lot of people through that. That is really neat. The best part about the new FaceTime, you can also apply stickers, filters, Animoji, and Memoji there too, which could result in some horrific team meetings. That is true, because as I said, I don't even use those things. I'm seeing koalas here. I'm seeing weird unicorns in the picture here. I don't know what's going on. The Apple Watch is now smarter about your workouts thanks to watchOS 5. The new Apple Watch software introduces automatic workout detection, which can suggest an activity based on what it thinks you're doing, in case you forgot to program your workout ahead of time. This is really cool if this works, because I'll tell you what, the way you have to do it now is you have to expressly tell the app by going through the different interfaces that you're about to start a workout and what that workout is. I have a hard time tracking basketball workouts because you have to tell it whether it's an outdoor run or outdoor walk, and it's sort of in the middle, and I don't know if it's tracking very well off of that, and you're not going distances. You're going back and forth and back and forth. And when you're shooting by yourself, I never want to say I'm doing a walk because then it makes me psychologically feel like I'm not doing a real workout. But when I do a run, I actually get less distance than I would if I were actually walking it. And I think it has trouble with that back and forth. So I really just use it to track the time, I guess. But this is neat because it'll just it'll go there. But the other piece that I hate about the workout app, it is so sticky. It's like so caught up when you try to get to it, and it won't let you tap on the workout. I feel like you waste 5 to 10 seconds every single time you're using the app or about to use the app on getting it to start, getting it to pick the right workout. I don't understand why it's so buggy. It's bizarre. It's Apple's built-in app. It just doesn't make sense to me. Similarly, if you forgot to turn off your workout manually, the Apple Watch can also now detect if you stop working out. The Apple Watch has a new way to communicate, walkie-talkie. Just choose a person to talk with, and once that person accepts your request, you two can chat whenever you like. You just put into your watch and start talking. You just push into your watch and start talking. This works over both cellular and Wi-Fi. I guess that's interesting. I never have a great experience talking on my Apple Watch. I try not to do it a lot. I'm always farther away from my phone, and it just feels like a distance, like you're yelling to someone at the bottom of a well. Another clever Apple Watch feature, if you raise your wrist, you don't need to say, hey, SIRI, to start talking to your Apple Watch. It will automatically recognize that you want to talk to it. Just say whatever you want. Okay, interesting. Students are going to love this one. In watchOS 5, you can add your student ID card to your Apple Watch so you can access your dorm or library, or even pay for snacks or laundry or dinner with only your Apple Watch. It'll start at 7 universities, including Duke, this fall. That's cool. I love the Apple Watch as a way to pay for things, as a way to be a passport to things. I really do like that. I use 95% of my Apple Watch use is on the watch. With the new phone, I haven't done it. So I mean, it's new in the sense that I've had it since like the fall, but I so infrequently use the actual phone to do it that I don't even know how you do it, especially with the phone, the 10, which doesn't have buttons anymore. So I almost just use the watch because I don't even know how to use the phone. I have to remember to do it sometimes just to keep myself practiced. The Apple TV is getting a nice new feature called Zero Sign-In, which lets you access all your supported apps included with your TV services on your Apple TV. By the way, I did officially cut cable this week. I am now just YouTube TV. This means that if you buy a new Apple TV, you won't have to manually sign into every TV app to start using it. That is really, really good. The Mac is finally getting a true dark mode with the newest macOS release, Mojave, coming later this year. I am now a MacBook person, so these affect me, but I almost reflexively read them and never think it affects me, but we'll see. Apps are not really big on the Macs. It's been quite a learning experience on the Mac, to be honest. I don't know if I love it. Don't turn off on me now because I said that, Mac. In the new Mac OS Mojave, a new feature called Stacks can easily organize all the random contents on your desktop into neat little batches of documents. Okay, we'll have to see how that works. Apple made Continuity, its system that lets you pick up where you left off on other Apple devices, much more powerful in Mac OS. Now, if you're working on a document or Mac and invoke a function to take a photo, it will automatically activate the camera on your phone. And when you snap that photo, it automatically appears in the documents on your Mac. This could be a huge time saver. This is kind of a nice feature that I found with the different devices. They're all in the same ecosystem. So that does seem pretty seamless and continuous, or continuous, would it be? Or continuous? Yeah, I don't know what the word is for that. Lastly, Apple also offered a sneak peek of an ambitious project it's working on, the ability to easily convert iOS apps into Mac apps. Apple used this new tech to bring its voice memos, Apple News, and stock apps from the iPhone to the iPad and Mac this year, but the new feature will be available for all developers in 2019. So all in all, a nice batch of stuff that we can look forward to. I'm going to be interested if I actually use this time spent thing, where you tell yourself to only allow the phone to give you the ability to be on an app for a certain amount of time. I'm not sure if I'll use that. It would be smart to use, though. But I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure if I will or not. But we'll see. So why don't we call it there? Basketball and WWDC. Good mix. It's a very true mix of the things I like to talk about in one discussion here. So folks, let's talk later, all right? I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.